Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he threw it all on one station.
I know, I don't know why, that's what I like, especially out in Washington, it's a choice,
So now
you know?
I'm in front of the screen. Out of it. Yep, it goes out of it. Yeah, just we.
I mean, if this is your business,
It's gonna be cool.
you should know how to be efficient.
Now, here it says you can still, so we're good on that. And now I have to share the screen.
And kids.
Presentation.
It's different, how you should do it here.
Desktop.
Hands, bigger hands.
I get when you get up here, you have the option, the all kinds of stuff. That you can have, that's what we had, you could pay extra, the choice.
So that's, yeah.
Double launch.
This should be on YouTube.
And that's.
It's on there. We're good.
Okay.
You're first. Yeah. Are we ready?
If we're up and running, we are ready. We're a minute ahead of time.
Oh.
We're gonna. As soon as it turns to 5:00.
Get up there and ready.
Yes.
Standing when it turns down.
Money mark, yes,
Pretty much. Do you have to do anything to like get the order and all that stuff before I start talking?
I think we just, we just say, well, you can see.
Yep.
I'll just click for you. if That's okay.
That works, yeah, 5:00.
We're both at work.
Board work session to order.
Okay.
And the first is Joe Carney, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
From Washington.
yes. So thank you for having us tonight. We're gonna just go through our building goals for the year. And a lot of them are pretty similar to what we had last year. We are continuing, we had a lot of growth last year in our English language arts scores. We've set a pretty lofty goal of showing 11% growth as measured by the FAST early reading scores by the end of the year. So those scores in May are spring tests. Our second goal is very similar, but just with math. Our goal is to increase by 10% there. And our third goal, we have kind of seen a pattern with kids struggling with managing strong emotions with peers. And so we don't give the full conditions of learning survey to our students. We give sort of a modified version that our teachers kind of talk through with kids. And so the questions are things like, are you able to solve problems with peers? Are you included in play? Do other people leave you out? Things like that. And so those questions are ones that we'll focus on. Our goal is to reduce the number of students negatively responding by half. So it's kind of confusing, but like if 20% say that's happening in the fall, we want it to be at least 10% in the spring. So kind of going deeper dive into English language arts, our professional learning communities, we are so thankful to have our Wednesday afternoons available for our teachers to come together as PLCs. And so we're going to continue to keep improving that process. It really helps having those afternoons because then I don't get pulled away, teachers don't get pulled away. We can just focus on our PLC work during that time. During those times, we're going to be also working on our essential standards. What we found is if we make our work too big, we don't pick out the essential standards. Everything is essential, then nothing is essential, and it's just too much. There's too much to cover, and so we need to pick out the most essential work that our kids need to learn and really focus our time and efforts in those areas. We are switching from a test called My IGDs in preschool to a test that goes with our really great reading curriculum in preschool. And we're doing that because it gives us better information about how kids are doing and how they're going to be prepared for kindergarten in the next year. Our district is also looking at adopting a new ELA curriculum. Dr. Schilling has probably talked about that in the past. So those conversations are ongoing, but we're excited for the changes that are coming. And then we have tier 2 and tier 3 teams that help us support students when they're struggling in academic areas. It can be behaviorally or socially, things like that, but specifically with English language arts, we have those structures already in place to help our students grow. Math is going to be pretty similar. The one piece that's in addition here is that our district has focused on professional development for math for the 24-25 school year. So we will have some full day or half day professional learning that will take place around our Bridges math curriculum that Dr. Schilling has put together. And so we will keep improving our teachers and that will help our students grow. But in addition, same as with ELA, our PLCs, we're going to keep getting better with those. And then our tier 2 and 3 structures are in place to, again, to support students when they need it. And then our third goal, so we have a curriculum that we use with all students called Purposeful People. It's called Character Strong in the upper elementary, middle school, high school. It's Purposeful People for our age students. And we really like it. There are a lot of really great resources to it. One of the pieces that we found last year was lacking was just kind of tangible tools to deal with those small social problems for young kids. And so we are going to kind of pull strategic pieces from Second Step to be able to help support that. And again, to help us reach that goal of having students have those positive social interactions. We have a PBIS team that helps us develop lessons about how to solve problems. Again, it's a pattern we're seeing in all grade levels. Very small problems become very big responses. And so we want to be able to help teach kids how to respond to those in more positive ways. And then we will also be looking into WIN groups, which are our intervention groups. We already use those for things like reading and math, but potentially for social emotional learning as well. So if we have a group that's really struggling with play, or they're really struggling with getting physical after small problems, we can put together an intervention group and specifically teach those skills to help support those students. Okay. Chelsea, is there any questions? I'm sorry, before I walk over.
What's the testing sequence throughout the year that is compared to not just us, either state or national, so we can see how we're doing compared to others?
Yeah, so we test 3 times a year with FAST. And because our students are so young, we don't have ISASS or anything like that. So we tested already in September. We are just finishing this week, the last few students. We'll test again in January, and then our last one will be in May.
How did we do compared to last year?
Unfortunately, we saw a little bit of a backslide this year with our kindergarten to first graders, and I'm trying to investigate why that is. And so our kids we have one measure called the DRI that shows our kids are doing extremely well, but on FAST, not as well as we would like. And so I think what a lot of it is that our kids can do it, they just can't do it as fast as FAST wants them to do it. So all of the FAST tests are timed. So our kids have the skills, we just have to become more fluent with them. Yeah.
One of my other things I'm interested in is children, students of any age, knowing how to write.
Yes,
We're teaching printing
absolutely. Yes,
on paper.
on paper. Yes,
Line
I have
paper like
I
I
have
do.
seen kids tracing letters and writing their own letters. Yes, that is happening in kindergarten and first grade.
All right, well, that was next. I know.
That's,
Cursive there.
Cursive is not my department, so
That's my
yes.
department.
That's a great transition. Thank you.
Hey, one more question.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm gonna ask all 3 of the same question.
Yeah.
As a board, is there any main daily concern that we can help with, or that we should be aware of? What is the fire you deal with on the daily? That's the biggest thing for us, because if we don't know, we can't help. If there's something we can help speak to the public about or help through board discussion, what would that?
I mean, for me, it's behaviors. I mean, to be honest, I mean, we're just dealing with a lot of pretty intense behaviors. You know, I understand the budget we had to cut. We lost our lead teacher, who was a huge support to me last year. So that's one piece that's been really challenging, but that's the front burner problem every day for us. Yeah.
At your level, is that something that you just traditionally see higher at this point in the year because they like all getting back together, just being in school for the first time, or is it just
I'm
the
trying to
group
think.
of people that we have?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to last year and I don't remember the fire burn this hot. So, yeah, it's been a challenge so far. So we're trying to still problem solve but I think there's some truth to that. The beginning of the year is always hard.
Or just them being in a, but yeah, it's
New
nothing else.
environment,
Yeah.
yeah.
What age groups do you have again?
I have preschool through first grade.
Preschool starts at what age?
4. We have some 3-year-olds who are students with IEPs, but they have to be 4 by September 15th.
Okay, so 4, 5, 6?
6, some 7s, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you say behaviors, you're talking about all those age groups?
Yeah. Yeah, typically K1, we have a couple in preschool, but mainly K1.
Mhm.
I had heard that before, so
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah.
As
sure.
parents, we know what's,
I know,
and if I could give my soapbox speech, it would be to all parents out there. Get in touch with your kids and have the chat about how to behave.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
kids are not polite to people right now in general. I don't know if it's society as a whole, but kids need a little more structure on all levels, because you guys can't be expected to do it all in school.
yeah, it takes a lot of our time for sure,
Is there behavioral, you guys still have a behavior? Or
as far as like an intervention
Yeah,
type
okay.
space, kind of, yes.
a teacher?
So that's one thing. So we have a general education teacher that we hired who is being supported by Amy Speaker at Lincoln. There just aren't strat 2 teachers available. And so that was a pretty big loss for us last year. We lost our behavior teacher and we just didn't have candidates to fill that position. So
Mrs. Rottler,
Mrs. Rattler left, yeah.
and so no one is took that job.
We do have a teacher in her role, but she's not licensed for that, which is why we're using a model called reverse consultation. So Amy Speaker is the teacher of record for their IEPs and things like that. She helps design the SDI. And then Stephanie Ansel is the teacher there who delivers the SDI.
So she like full-time
She is,
deals with behaviors,
she
kind
is,
of.
yes. And the
First
staff,
grade and below level.
and the staff in her room. She has phenomenal staff in her room, but yeah, that's a big part of our day.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, thank you.
First time principal.
I know, the newbie. So I'm Chelsea Moen. I'm the principal at Lincoln Elementary. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with me, I used to be up here at the high school as a high school counselor, transitioned into the lead teacher role at Lincoln last year. And now I'm the principal at Lincoln and very happy to be serving my students. My school improvement goals are in 3 areas, same as Mr. Carney. Literacy, RBL, I should sidetrack. RBLT, so our building leadership team, is the one who developed these goals in tandem with me, so you guys know where these goals are coming from. So first off, literacy, we are focusing on 10% growth in proficiency from spring, so the end of their last school year to this coming spring. So we have 4 data points that we can kind of measure our progress on. Mathematics, we do not have any math data in MAP, which is the assessment we're going to be using. For spring, it would be our 2nd graders because they don't take it down at Washington. So we're looking for 10% growth in proficiency from fall to spring. And then culture and climate. This is a goal that our entire building and teacher leaders came together and decided on this goal. And so our goal is that there's a 25% decrease in overall behavior referrals made by the end of the 24-25 school year. You heard Mr. Carney talk about just behavior in general and how that takes up a significant amount of time. And in our building, we noticed that we had students outside of the classroom a lot. They were being addressed by administrators, the lead teacher. We had two full-time positions also helping assist address behavior last year. We don't have a lead teacher. We don't have those 2 other full-time positions in what was called the refocus room. And we also just noticed some of the behaviors were lower level that maybe we can address in a different way. And so we wanted to be more proactive and responsive to our student needs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So specifically for literacy, what we're doing in order to meet our goal is we have daily time embedded into our schedule every single day for students to get what they need, whether that is intervention or enrichment. We will be creating individualized learning plans for all students who aren't meeting benchmark or making proficiency. We have a few different programs we're going to be using. So we will be using Imagine Learning Literacy, which is a program that actually many of our teachers are sitting in a training for, just wrapped up just now, that we will be utilizing for across all grade levels. We also are using something called HD Word for 2nd and 3rd grade, and it's focusing on phonics for our students to strengthen that. We're very excited about the PLC work that we're able to engage in, and that's going to be a huge component in addressing student needs real time. So seeing how students are responding to instruction and then adjusting when we need to. We've also established some checkpoints so we can reflect on our progress towards our goals as a BLT, so the building leadership team, but also within our PLCs. And then finally, Joe mentioned this as well, just finishing the curriculum adoption for literacy. So you can see our current reality. I threw up some data here because I was able to provide it. You can see where our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders were as far as being proficient in spring and then also this fall. You can see there's actually a negative 3.4% change. Some of that's the summer slide that we experience that a lot of us talk about or know about as adults when kids are out for the summer. So we have a little bit more to work on there in order to get them back to where we want to be in the spring. For math, we have a lot of similar plans in order to meet our goal as far as like daily time embedded into our master schedule. And then also utilizing the PLCs and the checkpoints. The differences here is we have our newly adopted curriculum bridges in the 2nd year. And so continuing to implement that with fidelity. Mr. Carney also mentioned Jen Schilling has planned some PD to help our teachers to continue to do that. Another thing that we have been discussing at Lincoln and started to do at the end of last year is utilize our bridges screeners and reviewing post assessments at the start of each unit. So what that means is we have students take screeners at the start of each unit, and that helps teachers better understand what prerequisite skills the students need in order to be successful in that unit. And then we can plan in advance how we can kind of front load some of those skills that they might be lagging behind on. So they're then able to understand the curriculum we're moving through at the time. The other side of it is just planning for success. So teachers reviewing the post assessment. So what we want students to know by the end of the unit in advance. So then they can kind of pick out the key components, the most essential work like Joe Carney had mentioned, and really emphasize that in their planning and then also their instruction with students. Our current reality for mathematics is we will be doing math testing next week. So we will have that data next week and our first data point to move on from there. Culture and climate, our final goal. We have done some things just even structurally to help set our students up for success this year. I recognized last year we had all grade level sections out on the playground at one time and out in our cafeteria at one time. And our 3rd graders now, there's 5 sections of them. That's like 120 kids out there. So we actually split our 2nd and 3rd grade sections up for lunch and their recess that correlates to lunchtime. And we've seen a huge success with that. The kids just have more space. There's more space. Adults are more accessible and able to address students in the moment before things escalate. So that's been a significant help. We've also identified and implemented some consistent and proactive strategies to address our student behavior in common areas. So really unifying the adult response to, if I see Johnny running in the hallway, how am I going to do it? And Johnny's going to have the same consistent response regardless of what adult it is. Or on the playground, we divide the playground up by quadrants. So there's one adult in each area. Those types of things, kind of brainstorming that and equipping our adults with that knowledge. So we also revised our behavior protocols. We made sure that we have signage throughout our building of our expectations and the behavior protocol. And what's really cool about that is we have the expectations for the cafeteria, our behavior protocol. And if a student is not meeting expectations, you can actually walk right up to it with the student. Where do you think you are? And kind of start that reflection process. okay, you're kind of in the yellow area, like what do you need to do to get up to the green and meeting expectations? And so reteaching in the moment has been really helpful as well. We also schedule teaching of expectations. So we hit that hard the first few weeks of school. We will do that again after every single break. If we notice certain areas that need some more reinforcement, we'll do that throughout time. Mr. Carney also mentioned purposeful people, and we are teaching that with consistency across all classrooms and not pulling out students. And then also clarifying and refining our tier 2 process. And the whole purpose of that is last year we were meeting students' needs, but it was almost in a more responsive way with our refocus room. So like when they needed a break, they were getting it. Now we don't have that. So what do we need to do? So it's noticing sooner when students are communicating to us and their behavior is communication, that they need additional supports, and then wrapping around quicker to find what the solution is to help keep them in the classroom and in instruction, but also support them behaviorally too. So we're not having major behaviors happening. And then also recognizing positive contributions. So this one's really awesome because I can share, we can switch to the data one. Share data, it's real-time data, where this is in comparison to last year. We're tracking this, and again, we want a 25% decrease, and so far it's been fairly successful, but I will say we had a pretty awesome honeymoon phase this year. Last year, there was not much of a honeymoon phase, or like what we as educators would call it, so.
So in 1 month we went from last year it was 96, and this month you only have 31,
So,
right?
so
School started?
if you look at, so August, we had 13 this year, last year we had 12, so we had the 48% decrease. So far in September, we've had 18, last year it was 71 by this point in time.
All across and was that second, third, and fourth last year?
Yep, we had second, third, and fourth in my building last year too. That was the first year. And that's the other thing, is there were some growing pains with just figuring out things. Second graders developmentally are a little bit different than fourth graders, and sharing our common building expectations. So it was really helpful during pre-service to get on the same page with all of our adults in the building. Any other questions for me?
Same question as Joe. What fire can we help with?
Yeah, I honestly, and our data looks outstanding as far as behavior goes, but I can tell you like that is what I'm starting to deal with all day, every day. It takes up a significant amount of time in order to do it right. I want families to know when I'm calling them and telling them something that I've done my due diligence and due process for a student on both ends. And so if you're doing that right, it eats up a lot of time, and with the loss of the support staff, I'm concerned about my ability to also then be an instructional leader and help support my teachers the way they deserve to be supported in order to help meet our goals. And so it's kind of trying to find that balance. So I think it's the same as Mr. Carney's, to be honest, so.
The best solution that you're both thinking is more support. You know?
And I'm trying, like, that's what that
Would help.
goal, like our adults, there were some adjustments that we needed to make, but even getting into this cadence and getting out of the honeymoon phase, I'm like, okay, we've tightened up, what is this gonna look like? And I'm a little nervous for that, so, yeah.
When does the parents become involved if a child is misbehaving?
Yeah, so we have different referral processes. We have a minor, and then we also have a major. Minors are teacher managed, and those would be things like horseplay, not following directions, kind of low level behaviors, but we also don't want them in our classrooms. That is at teacher discretion when they choose to contact, but the expectation is if we're seeing it multiple times, we're contacting. When it's a major behavior, I'm always contacting. Always letting the parent know what's going on, so. Yeah.
What have we done as a school to let the parents know that this is occupying a lot of our time and we need a solution to it? Have we done anything as a school?
You know, I am not aware of anything like since I've been here as far as communicating that out. It's hard because you have to respond to the student behavior. My building needs to be safe for everybody. And obviously I can't control a child, nor can the parent, but they can wrap around and help us. I will say the majority of my conversations with parents this year have been really super positive, and I've really appreciated that. It's not always fun to get a phone call home from the principal and like, hey, this happened today, want you to be aware, how can you help us at home? And most of them are willing to have conversations and stuff like that and be like, you know, I'll work on that with Johnny or whatever, and just trying to wrap around that support. But no, as far as making them aware of how much time it is
I just
consuming
think
in a
in
day.
general, you guys are spending an enormous amount of your time doing that. That didn't happen in the past. So parents need to be aware that a lot of your time, which should be involved in education, is involved in parenting. And that's their job, and we want them to work with kids before they get here.
I'm not as familiar with the elementary ages. Joe and I have worked well since my kids finally come into the public school. Do you guys do a prior to school parent teacher conference like some of the surrounding districts that we can?
Yep, so we have
address
parent
this?
teacher conferences, we have, and I can't quote exactly what our attendance was, but typically. The back to school ones well attended 96-98%. That then they individually meet with their teacher. And so, yes, we do that. It is highly encouraged, recommended that every single parent comes in for that.
I know similar schools give a behavior contract of sorts.
Yes,
Yeah, I don't know
yes.
if that's something we do or.
Yes, we also provide that. We do not require a signature on that to come back. We used to. And I asked teachers, is this one more thing? Like, what are we doing afterwards? They do reference it sometimes, but it was not something. I just didn't feel like it had to be a tight because then what, right? But we are going through it when dream conferences. So we're sending it home even. The letter that also includes our behavior matrix and our protocols and stuff like that, so they're aware. That's a good question.
Always something, I like to try and be proactive, like Joe and I have talked before with my own children.
Yeah.
We cannot be reactive. In the society we're in today, there's no accountability on anyone, so if we have a contract that says, you know, you're gonna have to step up to the game here and parent this, cause I can't. We may be a glorified daycare, state funded daycare, but you still have to raise your children to respect the people they're with all day, so if we can somehow put the accountability back on the families. We're here for you, but we're only 5 of us.
Yeah.
And I just have one more thing too. I can't speak for Chelsea, but like for us, it's about a dozen kids that take all of our time. I mean, we've got over 200 kids. 97% of them are awesome. It's really a dozen kids that are taking the majority of our time. So I don't want to like oversell the problem, but the time factor is real. It's just not 100 kids doing it, if that makes sense. So,
But you start with 12 and every year it grows.
yeah,
Because 12 got away with it, the next 10 get away with it. I know in my own house, that's how. 10%. Let the first one go, the next one will take a mile, so. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right, everybody go. Hopefully I'll make this quick. Announcing at the 7th grade football game, so I have a stand-in person for me right now. My 3 goals are very similar, but slightly different too. I think this being my 6th year, you know, we've got a lot of systems in place that support behavior. We're deeply embedded in the formative assessment cycle with our staff. We have a lot of things that are rolling, so we're really in fine tuning and helping support Dr. Burnite in the financial aspect of what we can do at the middle school. So goal area 1 is pretty standard. It's we want to increase the number of students who are meeting expected growth. And the number that we chose was 62%. Last year we had about 55% of our students met expected growth. So that's different every single year. A kid goes from like 4th to 5th grade. Let's say on ISAFs you're supposed to grow 21 points. So we're looking at the number of students who grow 21 points, whether they're down here and growing or up here and growing. We want every single student, well, we're saying 62% would be a 5% increase in the number of students meeting or exceeding expected growth. And that really equates to what we think will be around 70% of our students will be at proficiency, which is a really good number. That's above state average. And the middle school has been trending at or above state average for the past 3 to 5 years. So we're heading in the right direction. Goal number 2 is this year our building budgets were cut. Our building budget was cut about $10,000, which is significant. a little over 12%. So we really have to be frugal and cognizant of what's going on. So we made a goal around this, and really it's just all about helping put information in front of staff about where we are, how we can make good, positive financial choices, and then responding to our budget on a pretty regular basis. That's new. We've never really done that before. The budget has really been maintained by me, and then I just say yes or no when we get close. And we've never really gotten close, so I think we're gonna be okay with the new number that's given, but I just wanna make sure we're putting some things in place. So we built a goal around that. And then goal number 3, this was around like culture and climate for staff. And we have a really, really great staff at the middle school. We've had some turnover, which isn't always necessarily negative. And I think we have the right mix of the right people on the bus right now. So keeping the right people in the right spots on the bus is going to be super important. So that's where the goal comes here, is increasing administrative presence and support of teachers by we're implementing weekly problem-solving meetings with them, with our team leaders, and then being super cognizant about getting in the classroom as much as possible. Like these guys, you can get caught up in the whirlwind of dealing with student discipline and things like that. So I like to make a goal around this to make sure that that I'm out there coaching teachers and giving really good feedback and being where I always say, be where the missile launches, not where it lands. So the more time I can spend in the classroom being connected and helping and being a resource, I think the further on we're going. So goal number 1, our academic achievement, how we're going to get there. All of the work that we're doing around academic achievement is happening in our PLCs. And I love the fact that we now have early outs on Wednesdays. That really gives a really concrete time every single week that our teachers can be meeting, collaborating, planning together, looking at student data, and then making really great decisions based on what's happening in the classroom in real time and the support that they have. So we're going to be engaged in the formative assessment work. And really what that is like understanding where our standards are, what our criteria are for them meeting those standards, and then how does it break down in the classroom when we're giving an assessment, and not assessment like end of the unit assessment, but like daily assessments, like really quick questions. How do we respond to that in real time to make sure that all of our kids are growing? That goes back to like that we want to increase the number of kids that are growing every single year. So the teachers are creating formative assessments and giving weekly feedback. That's one of our goals in our building, that we're getting to that point where we're giving feedback a lot. As feedback helps me grow, it helps our students grow. So I give feedback to the teachers give feedback to the students, and then we grow. And then the teachers responding to student performance. This is MTSS. This year at the middle school, we've increased our the length of our classes. The lowest we have is 57 minutes in our 5th and 6th grade. And the most we have is an every other day AB. So we have 90 minutes of a block. So really, we've got a lot of really good time in those classrooms to really dive deep into things and figure out how we can be responsive in the moment to our student needs. So we're really diving into that and utilizing that new structure. Goal number 2, we're going to run financial reports monthly. I'm very, very fortunate to have Dana as the assistant principal, and she has a great financial background and has helped create some really great reports. So we'll be running reports, and her and I will be talking about where we are monthly, and then communicating our financial status and forecast to the budgets quarterly. So every quarter we're going to get in front of staff and say, okay, this is where we are. We made some projection lines about where we're spending and how we're spending it and where that's going to be if we continue. So just trying to be proactive. And then maximizing our human capital expenditures to increase efficiency. Really, it's making sure that when we get a request for another aide staff, or we get a request for another staff member, we're really looking hard at ways we can make sure that we're super efficient. And then just working through some protocols and asking a lot of questions. A lot of times it's like pausing and waiting and seeing if it's a real need or if it's like a bad day, or a couple of students are having a bad day, or how we respond. So I think that's a super important goal, because that's where most of our money is spent in the district, is in human capital. So if we're going to be able to, make some financial moves, we're going to have to be super efficient. And then goal number 3, this is all about being out there with the teachers, and like I said, setting a goal with this is super important, because I think where we put our time is where we communicate our values to our staff. And if I'm in my office dealing with stuff, they don't see me, and that's not where I feel like we have the best, that's not where my time is valued the most. So we make a lot of goals around, I make goals around this, around being in the classroom. So weekly walkthroughs, problem solving meetings, we call them 15-minute standing huddles. It's with our team leaders. Hey, what do you have for me? What do I have for you? And it helps really with our communication to make sure that we're all on the same page and moving forward. And then celebrations and connections, we do this thing called Spotlight. So other teachers nominate other teachers, and then we celebrate, and we do that every single week we get together. Every one of our beginning PD starts with, hey, something that's you see somebody else doing great, and I share and they share. And then we're starting to dive deeper into some personality surveys around like who are we as a person and how do we respond to different things. So it's really helping create efficacy. So whenever we do get in a conflict in a teacher to teacher situation, or somebody does something, we kind of have the background about why they did it, not necessarily they're doing it to make you mad. No, this is how they typically respond to these issues. And we've actually used that a few times to help coach some people through some hard things. So it's been really great. Our data so the walkthrough link, this is what I use to help. Sorry. Basically, it's like a weekly checklist. It has all the teachers' names, and then my goal is to get in every classroom every single week, at least one time, to get one piece of feedback. So I just color code it, and I can see where my gaps are. So if I miss one, I make sure I get it the next week. So it helps me stay organized. And then all of these, sorry.
Yeah, no, we worked on mine, but then when we switched to this device.
Sure. The ISAS trends, that's just a board that we have that shows where we've been and where we're heading. And then our ISAS growth, that's a student by student breakdown that we use to kind of track where students are heading. And we can help them set goals and help our teachers set goals around, okay, this student looks like they need help here. Let's really dive in deeper. And then, of course, the financial data, like I talked about, it helps us with our trends, where we're going, what we spent to this point last year, and what we're spending at this point right now, so we can see how we're doing, if we're going to meet our goal or not.
I had a question about your MTSS schedule. So last year, I know you guys were just like a standard 9-period day. And then if I remember correctly, like even in spring, you were still that. What did you guys talk about making the change this summer, or was that something that was discussed? So I guess the first question was like, seems like it happened fast, and then it was like going, because it's only.
It did, and really it was, the solution was in response to staffing needs. Because we through attrition, we didn't hire back 3 staff members, and they all happened to be from the same department. So I was like, oh, okay, we've got to come up with a really creative solution. And we had some blocks that were happening. Our science and social studies were in block last year in 7th and 8th grade, and there were some good results that were coming out of it, some really great projects and some good student connections. So this was a way to kind of simplify our schedule, to maximize our staffing. And we also noticed that we had a built-in MTSS block, and I found that it wasn't real efficient. It ended up being for some kids, another study hall, and we just didn't need that. So we said, okay, I think it'd be better to give that time back in the classroom, where teachers who are working with the kids in real time can make real-time decisions, instead of, because the hard part about it is high school, and is like trying to group kids up and then give them what they need. And then what do you do with the kids who don't? Like, and it's just this organizational kind of nightmare that needs to be addressed every single month, because that's about how long an intervention should be. Well, now we can eliminate that rigmarole and the lag time, and it ended up being another prep for teachers too, which is hard. But I want the teachers being experts in the area in real time, helping the kids where they are. Think of it, it's almost like an elementary classroom model in that regard. Good
Well,
question.
then it's just like with the MTSS model, there's less transition time, so then you're gonna see less behaviors, essentially, or maybe in.
No, I would totally agree with that statement, and we're finding that. What we're also finding is like, teachers are diving deeper into building relationships with kids too, because they get them for 90 minutes. and then they get a new set of kids. So they're really teaching the same thing one day and then the next day. So they can,
So it's like an A/B model.
it's an A/B model, yeah, yeah. We did block schedule during COVID, but we did it in 4.5 week chunks. That didn't work out because then kids are going 4.5 weeks without math. Now they're going one day and that's perfectly fine. It gives them enough time to kind of absorb and then get back going. Great
So
question.
it's been positive, sounds like.
I think so. It's been, we brought in an expert from Colorado to come help us with how to manage block.
Sure.
And that was really great. She went into the classrooms and helped teachers rearrange the furniture, even to make sure that our settings are right for long periods of time, and how do we work with small group and what this looks like and how do you keep kids engaged for that kind of amount of time. And we'll continue to dive deep into more resources for block. But yeah, I think it's been pretty well received. Typically, you know when it's not, when you get negative feedback, and I haven't got a whole bunch of that yet from parents or from students or teachers.
So I have two questions for you. The first one's gonna go with the academic standards.
Yeah.
You're aiming for that 21 points of growth.
Mhm.
And meeting or exceeding.
Yeah.
What happens if the students don't?
Good question. So that means we're not doing our job as, you know, as educators, as administrators, we're not getting the right tools in place. We're not utilizing the formative assessments. That's a really good question. I will have to just go back in and figure out where we went wrong. The good news is we have an assessment that's coming up here in the fall next week. And then we do that again in the winter. So we don't have to wait all the way until the end of the year to see if our model is working or not. And if kids starting to kind of lag behind, and we can put extra emphasis on students. But I really think the in-classroom interventions, when a kid's not meeting it, and we can use everything from our grades to do that. We can use really quick quizzes and just we'll be able to identify students that need it earlier. Sure. So then it should be predictive of the end, but it's always a crapshoot, like, you know, what if we don't?
You're dealing with humans.
My observation on the deal is if you have a large group of that, that's your fault. If you have a few students, it's a student.
Yeah.
What do we do with those few students that either are struggling that bad or refuse to apply themselves?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's like leading the horse to water kind of question. Like, how do you create motivation? I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what we're at, but I don't wanna fall on that. I don't wanna say like, that's the whole thing.
Right, what I'm getting at is if a student can't meet
Yeah.
expectations in 5th and 6th grade.
Yeah.
It is my understanding it's up to the discretion of the teaching staff if they move on
Yeah.
or if we ask to retain.
Yeah.
At what point do we start to consider that retention
We have.
necessary?
Yeah, so especially in 7th grade, so it's kind of a pivotal year. 5th and 6th graders still, we consider that elementary, and we really need like 100% parental blessing in order to move forward on that. In rare cases, we would do it otherwise. But in 7th grade, if a student's not meeting standards and they fail 2 quarters in a row, now they have summer school. And that summer school is like designed to help fill that gap. If they don't perform at summer school, we start talking about, hey, you're gonna retake this class next year as an 8th grader, now you're gonna have 2 math classes instead of 1. Or now, you failed 3 classes, I can't move you on, we're gonna have that conversation about retention. But we've actually done that. It's, for most students, the idea of summer school is motivating, you know, it's like the stick of the carrot, like that's the stick, they don't wanna do that. But also we celebrate students every single week. And we celebrate student growth, and we celebrate honor roll, and we celebrate. So most kids are like more motivated by that. Hey, Mr. Taylor, did you see my grades? I think I'm meant to be honor roll. Like, that's the part where we want winning to be part of the culture. And the more we talk about it, the better off. We'll handle the 5 to 10% of the kids who need the extra work in the summer school and all that other stuff.
And I've seen your results personally, we both know that. My
Yeah.
daughter struggled 7th going into 8th
Yep.
and totally different child.
Yeah.
My fear is if we have an 8th grader.
Yeah.
That falls behind or chooses in some cases to not make the standards. I don't wanna see a student allowed to make that leap when they're probably not ready.
Yeah.
Whether it's a mental capacity or we need to dive deeper, we can talk about that more intimate, but You understand where I'm coming from.
I do, and there's a lot of mixed research on retention at older ages. It's almost like a precursor to dropout. Like if you start telling the kid when they're 14 that they're not making it, the self-fulfilling prophecy, and they start, plus you're like the social aspect of not moving on to high school with your peers, so. Yeah, we try to do everything we can to not do that, but we do have to do that, and even like the fact that that's built into our handbook and our policy. About if you fail this, then you're redoing in your summer school and all that stuff, and we've utilized that, we've had 25 kids in summer school last year, we had 33 the year before that. Kids feel it when they gotta spend 5 weeks of their summer in school, and it usually helps motivate them for the next year to do better.
And I'm fine with that. I just, like I said, I have to ask that question because I don't ever want us to feel like we're passing the buck.
Sure.
Because when they do get to the high school, then we're seriously talking dropout or
Or
Fail
failing out.
they're not gonna, because after 8th grade, we don't have that extra long reach to save someone.
Sure.
Before that, we teach behavior through middle school, elementary school. You're hitting 7th and 8th grade. Now it's standards and expectations. It's no longer just behavior. You've been taught that as you grow. Standards, expectations become 7th and 8th grade. In high school, it's an expectation because if you don't make it, you don't make it. You got to perform. So, and then my last question is the same as everybody else. I'm sure it's gonna be behavior, but if there's something else that the board can do or needs to hear, what would it be that's your biggest headache or fire?
I would say this, I mean, because obviously one of our goals is to manage the budget and like everybody else, I would say like. If we ask for something, it's because we need it, like period, like you gotta trust that we've done everything we can in order to exhaust the resources that we have. And just know that, yeah, just trust that, like, we all are in this together to manage our financial situation the best we possibly can. We know we do that by staffing. We also know when we're at like above capacity and we're in kind of a danger zone. So that's the thing is I just say trust. Trust that when we ask, it's for real and we've really done our diligence and like, hey, look, we know because that means we're not gonna get something later or something's gonna have to be cut down the road. But if we ask, it means that that's the only thing I ask from you guys is to trust.
And I will continue to reiterate the same conversations you and I have had over the years. Communication is key.
Yeah.
If there's something like that you want us to trust in, we only meet once or twice a month.
Yeah.
For an hour. We get 15 minutes to discuss something, we make a decision.
Yeah.
If you need us to have your back and understand something, please send an email.
Yeah.
Send something so we know. Cause
And
that's
really
the
it's-
only way we're gonna get the full scope of the picture outside of that 15 minutes.
Yeah, and really it's like, trust that the conversations have been had with us and that he's representing, the needs of us and that. We're all reluctant to ask for things and because we know the situation, but know that we really worked hard.
Thank
Any
you.
other question? Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Another newbie.
Another newbie. Yeah, thanks again for taking a chance on me, guys. Overall, I'd say the first year has been going really well so far, even though we're only a month in. We'll talk about some of that as we progress, but kind of want to start off with academic goals. We want to start from where we were last year and have 5% higher percentage of students proficient on the ISAS. That's one of our main focuses is the measure of where we are in the spring. And to piggyback off that is that students that are already proficient are going to maintain that proficiency at the grade level. So we're not going to see a drop off from 9th grade to 10th grade, 10th grade to 11th grade. We're going to be able to maintain that proficiency, if not take it above. And then thirdly, that students that are below that proficient mark are going to demonstrate a full year's growth and make some progress towards proficiency. So with the ISAS, we want to make sure that, one of my personal goals is that students are at the point where they're taking it seriously. And Ms. Johnson and I, the associate principal, have started structuring coming from a business background, I believe people respond to incentives. And that is an economic principle that has stood the test of time. To incentivize the ISASP in a way that would give students a little bit of extra motivation. So it's, hey, if you meet all 4 criteria of taking your ISAS, so it's not just sit and click through on a computer because I don't want to do this. It's, hey, if you meet 3 out of 4 criteria, what kind of reward will I get? That's not necessarily going to break the bank. It could be connections with the McDonald's family and providing a coupon for a free meal if you meet 3 out of 4 criteria in terms of growth in mathematics, reading, writing, and science for certain grade levels. But academically speaking, that's kind of where we are right now. And with that incentive program, I don't mean that to scare you. It is something that in previous districts that we have done, and we've seen it's worked pretty well to make sure students are taking the test seriously. Because when you get to that older grade level, it's just, students ask more questions. What's in it for me? And if we incentivize it a little bit, we think that we can maybe get better results from that ISAST, along with excellent instruction in the classroom. In terms of professional goals for year 1, I want to be able to retain 80% of staff, certified and non-certified, for the upcoming school year. One month in, I can tell you I'm incredibly impressed by the teaching staff and the non-certified staff as well. And I think a reflection of, hey, a good workplace culture in anywhere is retention. And knowing a lot of the rock star teachers, paras, support staff that we have, those are people I want to keep. And also knowing that retirements do happen, that life changes do happen, and respecting that. So I think that 85% number is a good testament of like, hey, first year, was the climate right? Well, let's go and ask the people that are employed here that are doing a lot for our kids. For number 2, something new this year is Wednesday after school. So that is what we are using for our detention structure this year at the high school level. So it could be for behavior issues. We have a system set up for tardies and unexcused absences, where students will have to stay from 2 o'clock to 3:30 in detention for that time. And the reason and mindset behind that is, hey, you lose your early out. You don't get to run to McDonald's for your, not to mention McDonald's flies, but you don't get to run home real quick before a sports practice. You don't get that luxury of being able to get out at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday. And we found so far, about 3 weeks in, that that's worked pretty well. And I'm excited to look at the numbers when we're actually 3 months in, to see if that structure is working well on getting kids in class and making sure that they are present. Same thing that Mr. Taylor talked about, to stay under our overall building budget for this school year is a big driving force. And again, coming from a business background, communication with teachers, doing very similar things in terms of our monthly check-ins, and making sure that if we're spending, it is a need and it's not necessarily a luxury. Number 4, again, with Wednesday early out professional development, we set up a tiered system where the first Wednesday and second Wednesday of every month, our teachers and their PLPs were all actually in here working together on our curriculum, our standards, our assessments, getting on the same page. And I can tell you that last week, being our first one, the first couple of Wednesdays were more building level stuff for policies, structures, making sure we're all on the same page with that, especially this year as a first year administrator, want to make sure that we have all that stuff. But last week was awesome. We had tables all around, people were collaborating, communicating, and it was really nice too, because if social studies PLC wanted to ask in the English PLC, they didn't have to run a halfway across the building. We're all right here. Hey, do you guys want to collaborate on this? Have some cross-curricular stuff going? Well, it's just table to table. It works out well. Tomorrow, we'll engage in student conversations. And with student conversations, we're going to look at students that we are fearful of not getting to the finish line. And we know that the finish line at the high school level is your high school diploma. It's the accumulation of all 18 years that you've worked hard to try to get that high school diploma. So we're going to bring everyone in together and we're going to discuss and try to identify students that we are fearful of not getting to that finish line, and collaborate and build in supports to make sure that every person, every student has that one champion. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but I think we can all relate that we all have that one teacher, coach, custodian that really helped us in times of trial, whether that was in 3rd grade, 2nd grade, high school, whatever, someone that was there for us. And our theme at the high school this year is connections before content, understanding that a genuine relationship can really get it to a kid to a finish line just as much as a good grade can. And if the relationship is established, that we can get that kid to the finish line. So that's gonna be a big driving force too. And then fourth Wednesday of every month is, and again, it's not listed there, but that's tied into professional growth number 4, goal number 4, is strategies, behavior strategies, what works well for you, and collaboration, because I think one of the things that we don't ask enough is using ourselves for ideas. I'll never forget Mr. West at Remsen gave me one of the best things that I've used forever as a teacher in terms of commanding a classroom's attention. He would say, snap his fingers, he had a really, really loud snap, say, give me your eyes. And I had never heard a phrase like that, right? So what if we all have strategies that we can use to better improve our instruction, differentiate our instruction, engage our students, what's working well for you, and steal those strategies from each other, from the excellent teaching staff that we have. So that's going to be that fourth Wednesday in that structure. Big believer that Wednesday PD can be very, very good if it's used intentionally, and that's going to be a big driving force for us this year. And then lastly, to build trust and relationships with all staff members while improving the culture and climate. You can't say those words, but to improve the culture and climate. And that's been year one, that's my focus, is make sure that this place is safe, make sure that this place is welcoming, make sure that this place's reputation is a direct reflection of what's going on. And I think, you know, I can't judge that. That's going to be more by staff at the end of the year. And just the survey sent out at the end of the year, hey, this is where we are now. How is it compared to where we have been? And hopefully that culture continues to improve. Some of the big things that we've rolled out this year as well, not just the Wednesday early outs, the Wednesday after school, we did implement a no backpack policy, primarily for school safety. I would say that didn't have as much pushback as I thought it would. Students are using their lockers again, so it sounds like a high school, like when you're walking through in between class periods, you'll hear the closing of the lockers. And I think that has been, I applaud our students. I applaud our students for it, because every kid is kind of, their backpack is their identity. And it hasn't really been a huge issue. It's been hey, you know, I'd say about 99% 1 week in, they were all following it. And then the other 1%, they were having troubles with their lockers and were too afraid to ask. All right, let's go figure it out. This is how we teach them how to do the 3-number combo and stuff like that. But overall, I would say homecoming week was fantastic. School spirit, I check in with Jamie, the high school custodian. I say, hey, I need a school spirit temperature gauge. And he goes, it's coming, Levi, it's coming. So, but overall, I think it's been an excellent start, and I think things are heading in the right direction. So what questions do you have for me?
Okay, I know you were grandfathered into a no cell phone policy. Is that still implemented here at the high school where they?
So cell phones can be used for academic use. And then cell phones can be used during lunchtime if the students are appropriately using them. So one thing that I know your question, my immediate light bulb moment was social media and a cell phone policy. That is going to be something that I was looking to do now starting mid-July. I think it would have been a little bit rushed, and I want to make sure if we initiate change, it's going to be rolled out and communicated well to parents. But that is going to be one thing on my priority list, is to find a cell phone policy using what a lot of schools have done across the state, across the nation. You know, it's finding the middle ground to where, you know, some have said a complete cell phone ban. They are in your lockers the entire time, right? Some have said, hey, we're going to do a little bit, but not too much. And I'd like your input with that and your thoughts with that as well, because Ms. Johnson and I have kind of been looking at a lot, comparing a lot, and figuring out what works well for us. And I think that's something that could be really beneficial moving forward. So
like you said, they leave the backpacks in the lockers, but then they're carrying their phones with them.
Yeah, so a lot of teachers have the check-in with them. So it's, you know, like the shoe organizer, you know, some people call it cell phone jail, right? So like, hey, cell phones are in there, but they are also utilized for academic use, and they can be a wonderful tool. So Tia McEnroy, one of our art teachers, We'll send students around to take pictures, not of other students, but of pictures to use for their projects that they're working on. Our Spanish department uses their cell phones for certain translation activities. I don't want to speak completely for them. But you know, academically, they do still provide value. So that's where I look at finding a middle ground in the future of, hey, what's something that we can do to make sure students are engaged right here and building the skills that we know are essential for life and being able to talk to people and not in a moment's hesitation of I'm nervous. That, you know, so that's something that's not to jump forward too much. That's something that I'm very much investigating in terms of what we can do that would fit us well. So.
I would give you my input on that is if you can take them away in any facet for social media, that is where 90% of your bullying in this school comes from.
Correct, and I would agree with that, and it would set.
When I have
Stuff that
parents
happens-
reach out, that's what I get.
Yeah,
My kids don't want to be here because they get picked on.
Yeah.
And I said, in class, because there's teachers, no, it gets passed through a cell phone. My encouragement is to tell them to shut their phone off,
yeah,
but kids don't know how to do that in the society anymore.
and it's. A lot of discipline issues have arisen from stuff that occurs outside of school with cell phones. This was sent to me on a Sunday evening or on a Saturday or stuff that happened over the summer on Snapchat, and then it makes its way in here. And that's one thing that, you know, I can't call Snapchat and say, take this down. You know, it's how are we, my question for myself too, that I reflect on is how are we also educating students on this? Are we sitting them down and, you know, instructing them on what are proper ways, good things to post online? What are bad things to post online? You know, and finding that lifelong skill, which it is now, to where we're not gonna be in a bind in the future of losing my job because of something that I posted online. And that's again, that's the area that we're in current society. So I'm very much in agreement. So that's something I'm gonna ask for support on as I draft that and we look to adapt that in the handbook for next year is a very clear, structured cell phone policy for exactly how we are going to be using those in the future. If it's gonna be a complete, no, we're not doing it, then hey, how are we gonna provide the resources to make sure we're not losing out on the academic side of that aspect as well?
So like you said, we aren't the first district to play with that idea.
Correct.
It's already starting to be thing, you know, it's like we've had 10 years of this social experiment
Mm-hmm,
and we've seen consequences and
Yeah.
the society kind of pursue it too. And so
yeah,
it's not something that's like, whoa, this Charles City is so innovative or not innovative. But
No.
we're following this trend that we realize maybe needs to be put in.
absolutely. And that's something where, again, if it would have been starting in early June instead of mid-July, I think that's something that could probably have already been implemented right now. But I will say that, you know, as we take time to kind of review what some other schools are doing and get some feedback, you know, Cherokee over in Northwest Iowa, put that out on social media, said, hey, it's first offense. If we see it, it's going to the office. Second offense, and don't quote me on this, it's some kind of a 3-tiered structure. Second one is parent call, they come pick it up. Third one is if we have it again, then I think they go towards it might be even be a suspension. So, and that's
So
something.
they are going to take pictures of.
Right, exactly. You know, it's kind of one of those deals where we want to make sure that we turn that out. So be looking for that on the forecast, but also just again, to reiterate, I think the climate is good right now. And if you ever have a chance to walk through, stop by, come check out some classrooms, I love that. I really would. So we got a lot of awesome people here. So.
Joe and Chelsea, do you see much problems with the cell phones at your level yet?
Maybe with some fourth graders, mainly it is about concern about staying in touch with their student and stuff like that. So we've had a few students go to their backpack, like to text and stuff like that. But it's not real high level yet, and the kids are really great at redirecting, like, hey, you can't have your cell phone because you have it. we're gonna keep it in the main office for you for the rest of the day, and we call home and say, hey, this happened, help us out, and. Yeah, so it really becomes an issue at the secondary.
Has Joe mentioned anything about cell phone use at the middle school? I mean, he's not here to speak. Whatever you guys.
That's me this year.
I think it would be a good thing to discuss, and I have a fifth grader that has received bullying messages from middle schoolers. Just because she knows them from the bus and all of a sudden they had changed numbers. My daughter's lost her phone because I'm not gonna have her subjected to it. You know, not everybody does that, and I know that it is an issue that quickly gets talked about. Some things it's fun, some things it's cool, whatever it may be, but it's so easy for a kid to just type or send a message.
There's a very interesting book that recently came out called The Anxious Generation. Myself and some staff members, I actually was just on my phone texting Levi, asking him to read that book,
Yeah.
just listening.
My
to
phone
what
goes.
he's saying. But it's really, really interesting stuff, and it talks a lot about the changes that we're seeing in our students, and linking it back to brain-based science and why we're seeing these changes in behaviors and stuff like that. And this author's theory is it has a lot to do with this. This is providing a lot of what our brains naturally want, and some dopamine hits and stuff like that. But we're not developmentally ready for something like this until the Arden's like 16.
Sure.
But it's a really great read if anybody's interested in it, and I'd love to have conversations about stuff like that, so.
So it looks like it could be a district-wide conversation, not just high school.
And that's where I'm at too, is, you know, just knowing that this is an issue, it's an issue everywhere. It's an issue nationwide. It's an issue in workplaces. It's an issue in churches. It's an issue everywhere. And wanting to get ahead of that, I think that could be a pretty cool collaborative experience with all of us. You know, you mentioned Social Experiment for the last 10 years, that same documentary that's on, is that the title? It's on Netflix. I encourage you to watch it, talking about the effects of social media on what Ms. Mullen just said, is the dopamine skyrockets when we get the likes, the retweets, the attention. And, you know, I just think of, in terms of overall, you know, emotional health for students, is it really improving? I get it, it's a wonderful tool, but its drawbacks are infinite. I didn't mean to take us off topic.
Sioux City has some nice policies too, they put in place for cell phones, and so what we found is that high school kids with different teachers would then get them out again later, knowing that teacher wasn't. And so by having that kind of consistency, okay, if you got it out in different classes, it escalated quickly towards that. We're taking it away, we're calling home, yes, it'll be a suspension if you get so many of these infractions. And so that was helpful in Sioux City, and we tried to frame it in a way that it wasn't a power struggle about, okay, if you're gonna refuse to give me your phone, then it's just gonna escalate now.
Yeah.
But, you know, and so they had that choice, but then they would have a consequence, and it worked pretty well. But did we eliminate bullying on social media outside of that? No, we did not, but it did work
City
well.
had a no cell phone policy?
Yeah, we did, and so, now, when I say that, when they went to lunch, they could have them out at lunch. But the rest of the academic times, they did not. And we had a really high bar as for what, if that teacher wanted to go take pictures, did we have old digital cameras? Could we take them with a laptop? Could we do some other creative things so that we weren't really using the phone? So it was really challenging, to say the least, for a teacher to get approval to do a class project with phones. I think there are times when that's okay, but they should you should know every time someone's doing that, with that kind of policy, so that way we restrict as much as possible the access away, maybe aside from lunchtime, if you want to have them out at lunch. But
And that's, you know, again, I'd say 95%, if we're talking about cell phone issues or discipline issues, I'd say 95% of those issues that are related to cell phones or bullying have come from stuff that has happened outside of school. And that's the thing that, you know, I immediately go towards education and case studies, and not saying it's the scared straight mentality, but hey, this person lost their job because of a social media post. Here's what not to do. Hey, this is what we're talking. Here's actual conflict resolution. Us sitting down and talking an issue out instead of hiding behind a screen. You know, those are the things that I think of in terms of education that, you know, we can work with. Make sure.
Maybe I won't give any of our ages, but I think we all support the world without cell phones, so we're not.
We may
We're
not.
not a bunch of 16-year-olds out here, so.
Policy may not eliminate the bullying,
Correct.
but it will not enable it either.
Yes,
If we
yeah,
control some of that factor, we're not enabling the kids to.
that's
have
where I'm
that
at.
freedom.
Yep, that's where I'm at too, is inside these walls, doing as much as that we possibly can, but also while educating to make them better outside those walls in terms of how they're using it. So, yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for your support. So look for more of that to come. And thanks again. Great to meet you.
And Jerry's back from bus driving, and I know all my principals commute, so is it okay if they?
Should we let these guys, the food service guys?
Oh, that's fine, the food service, you guys wanna go first?
Do you guys have any reports for the food service people while they're here? Your opinions, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How food's been going or not going at the building level?
I would say at the high school has been going really well. I know, you know, I think the students really enjoy the variety and the options that they have every single day, and the fresh, you know, going through the salad bar, and if they want that, coming from previous districts. Pretty dang good. So,
I would agree. Yeah, we have one specific preschool that I'll get with them, just kind of talk through, but like our afternoon class, if kids come too late, how can we still feed them? But we'll solve that problem. But otherwise, we've had really had success this year.
I think that like some things from last year have been addressed. My biggest concern is probably just the changing of entrees and stuff like that. And the reasoning, I'm fine with change, but especially at our level, we have kids who pick maybe with their parents, or we have students that have medical needs. And so they're actually looking at the menu in advance for a full month and planning because it matters. And so we've had some changes that have significantly impacted specific families and stuff like that.
I will
But
tell you
think
this.
it's working on that. The other thing is I feel like the communication has been really good.
It's just unfortunate that we have to deal with certain things like you guys have to deal with. For
Yeah.
instance, we start up school, everyone knows the date. I mean, it's across the country. Out of all my school districts, I'd say the majority of them start the same week. But your supplier brings in the food you need 4 days after school opens. And it's the first 3 days of school we need the food. And they're like, we're not gonna bring it in until you need it. Yeah, well, I needed it 4 days ago. Well, that's too bad. Okay, thanks, you know, so unfortunately, and it's not just the supplier we have, because we have the biggest supplier that's out there. We do that intentionally, so we get the food first. It's every supplier that's out there. They're not gonna spend any money, they're not gonna hold any product until there's a need for it, there's a large, you know, there's a large demand for it, and then they'll bring it in. So they just make us sit and wait. So that's where we get into that. I mean, listen, I have no problems ordering food. I mean, if we put chicken nuggets on the menu, it'll be chicken nuggets. Until they tell me, you'll get chicken nuggets 2 weeks from now. And I'm like, well, no chicken nuggets, you know? So, and it's unfortunate and it's frustrating for us as a company. We're trying to put pressure on our supplier to do a better job. So we can answer questions like that. Yep.
And I understand that you guys are, because like I said, the communication piece has been good, like you guys have been letting us know.
Yep.
It's like the menu was updated and revised in advance, so then we were able to put it in our newsletter to families, so they were aware and stuff like that, so.
When your
Now, I
students
think we're
choose,
past it.
I'm sorry, when your students choose a meal for the day. And then it comes lunch, they choose in the morning, I assume.
Yeah.
And then comes lunchtime, how often do you see kids switching what they pick? Or is there a way to make sure they can't?
So that was actually an issue at Lincoln last year, that by the time fourth graders were getting there, they were finding they were out of certain things. And what we found out is the students were changing their mind once they actually got in line. And then saying that they had picked a different, like a different entree. So we followed suit with what Washington has been doing, which is we have color coded each of the entrees. There's red, blue, and green, I think, or yellow or something. Anyways, they're all color coded. The students pick at the beginning of the day and then they're handed their lunch ticket and it's that specific color for that day. So then the cafeteria staff can look and go, oh, you're blue today. Like, even if you're telling me green, you got a blue card in your hand. And that's really, really helped us ensure that our kids are getting what they ordered. The other thing is our kids are visual. So a lot of our teachers kind of on the fly started putting up pictures of what the entree options might look like, because what we noticed is our kids were changing their mind because they saw it and they're like, oh, maybe I don't want that anymore. So just knowing the age level of our kids.
And I did share that with IC, and I really should have invited Lori tonight, my mistake, but I talked to her 4 times in the last couple of days.
They're busy with another meeting, we talked already, so.
Oh, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so, but she was really interested in the color card system that Lincoln's been using when I talked to her today about it. Because she acknowledged that there were kids that were, let's say, switching to tacos and then they hadn't signed up for tacos, and so then they ran out of tacos for kids that really hoped to have a taco. And that, you know, was not a positive experience as we want to have, and the right food for kids and pick the right food, so.
Yeah, we just use stoplight colors, so the first is red, yellow, green, and that's it, yeah, red, yellow, green. And honestly, like if we had 5-year-olds in line choosing at that point, it would take an hour to get through lunch, so we have to have them choose earlier, and we have to have them stick with that, so that's how we do it.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We're a team. The dynamic duo.
When we're getting a high school coffee machine. So.
We're working on that too.
No,
I know. So I'm going to kind of go through things kind of quickly because, well, I just got into town a day or so ago and kind of got a gist of what was going on. So when I found out something, you know, had transpired here, there's some unhappiness. I jumped on a plane and I came up here to address you personally because I take full responsibility for what happens, along with Brenda. But I did some research. I went and talked to IC. I talked to Julian, who's in charge of the food service there. I went and talked to our food service person who's in charge of getting the food prepared and getting it, you know, dispersed. And I even talked to the guy who picks up the food. I figured what the heck, he was standing there, I might as well talk to him too. So, but quickly, so currently what we offer at IC is we offer a canned fruit, a fresh fruit, 2 choices of a fresh vegetable, a hot vegetable, and 3 entrees. I asked if this is what would have been offered in the past. She said, not even close. She said, we should get whatever. And she said, whatever wasn't that great. So I said, well, good. It sounds to me like we're heading the right path. So if you take all of this, if you take all these items, which you're allowed to, by the way, that's over a pound of food that each child can take if they want. Fresh vegetable, hot vegetable, entree, 2 fruits. That's 4 ounces each. An apple and a canned fruit. We always do 2 different kinds. We don't do 2 fruit or 2 fresh or 2 canned. We always make it where it's different. So their tray will be completely filled with food. I asked how many kids get their trays filled with food. She said, oh, these are little kids. They don't need that much food. I said, wait a minute. I'm over here because I'm hearing that we're not feeding the kids and that they're hungry. Well, that's way too much food. I said, okay, well, I just want to express that the idea is that you can give them every single one of those items every day. And if there's not enough, I want to know about it because that's what we send over here every day is enough to perform that service. And so I understand the age of the kids, but I also understand the fact that their lunchtime is lunchtime and that should be the time they get to eat. So in doing that conversation, you know, I know the scenario there. So every day we get a list. There's a book, by the way, that goes back and forth between the schools. And in that book is what they wrote down is what they wanted. And we wrote down what we sent. And there's a verification, which I'm going to improve on because I'm going to have 2 people verify instead of just 1. Usually the lead verifies it at our location and then sends it over. And their person verifies it on their end. So we know that when we say we sent 50 hamburgers over there, they got 50 hamburgers sent over there. So that's a great process to have in place, but I just want to I'm going to add another layer in there just to make sure it's been done correctly. We're also going to have a separate production record. We used to put all that production together because it was produced in the same kitchen. Now we're going to separate it and they're going to have their own production record. We'll have our own production record. And the only reason I want that is because I want to try to understand what is happening. Because I talked to Julian and I said, you know, kind of tell me about this year. Well, the first couple of weeks of this year were very chaotic. Well, explain to me what chaotic means. Well, you're doing a lot of subbing. I said, yeah, I know. You know, we were subbing everywhere, every school, all the schools were being subbed with whatever we had. But after that, she said, the last 3 weeks have been very smooth. She said, perfect. Those were her words. She said, everything that you have said you were going to deliver was delivered. We have not run out of any food except for one incident about sub sandwiches There was 2 trays of sub sandwiches, one for Washington, one for IC. They got switched, they got theirs, this had 5 more on it than the other one, they had to send the Roberto back over to pick up 5 sandwiches. So not a big deal, you know what I mean, it was a mistake, like I told my lead today, it's okay, we can all make mistakes sometimes, it's all right. So I'm just asking questions so that I understand what our challenges are, so I can fix them. So, but in doing so, there is some challenges that I don't know that I can fix, and one of them was actually brought up. And that is, if I'm a child and I was here 2 weeks ago and I was standing there at IC watching the line with Brenda, we stood there together. And we're standing there and we came to the end of lunch and 2 little guys wanted a cheeseburger, well, they didn't get one. And the lady turns around and she goes, well, somebody who wanted a cheeseburger, we had mac and cheese, and they should have had mac and cheese, but they got a cheeseburger instead. Now we got 2 people that have cheeseburgers, and they're gonna have to eat macaroni and cheese. Because we don't have cheeseburgers anymore, because we gave them to somebody else. And I said, how often does that happen? More than you know. I said, well, now you're starting to fill my head with, I know where the food's going and why you're telling everybody that they're out. Because the kids aren't getting the right food. We don't have a system over there of colors, or we go by the honesty system. All the hamburgers in the front, all the mac and cheese is lined up behind them. Well, I feel like being a hamburger. I don't want to be a mac and cheese. You know, so I go to the front and I get my cheeseburger and no one knows the difference. Because we don't have a system. It's just kind of straightforward. What happens if we drop a tray on the ground and someone has to get a replacement? Well, then that takes a meal away from someone else. What happens if I carry my lunch and I decide that I like hamburgers? So I'm gonna leave my lunch in my locker, in my little classroom. I'm gonna come down and get in the front. I'm gonna get a cheeseburger. I said, how do you handle all that? Well, we just deal with it. Yeah, but doesn't that impact your business? I mean, doesn't that impact what you're trying to accomplish? Yeah, and we just deal with it. Whatever we have, that's what we give out. Sometimes the kids aren't happy, but what are we gonna do? And I said, well, how about we work on a program for you like we have in, you know, in Charles City schools where we actually have colors and we'll put a little dot on them or something, and then they have to stay with that, they can't change. That'd be a great idea, we ought to try that sometime. And I said, okay, let's try it sometime, you know, like soon, so that we can deal with that, you know. I also commented to Julia that I will start adding 2 entrees extra, so there'll be 6 extra entrees that I'll be sending over there every day with her order, so that will alleviate some of her pain, not all of it, but hopefully some of it will be alleviated. And then I also told her that we remove all items that are not popular that she wants removed. There's a couple items that she didn't feel like she wanted to ever see again, which is fine with me. I'm not a vegetarian guy either, so I'm good with that. And then adding more starch items. She made it clear to me that potatoes are something that the kids like, rice and potatoes. And typically we hold those back until the winter months, because right now, kids are usually heavy eaters during the 80s and 90-degree temperatures. And so we don't drop that heavy stuff on them right off the bat. We usually kind of push that in about the end of October, November, December, January, February. So I told her that would be coming, and she was very excited to hear that as well. So I think that we have what I would feel is a good plan. We're going to have to get the buy-in from the leadership, I think, over at IC, because I mean, you know, you gotta get real. I mean, when I go over there, they have a warmer. That's their cafeteria. There's a warmer. There's nothing else. There's a table and a warmer, and that's it. And I'm not used to operating that way. Matter of fact, a lot of times I would probably hesitate a little bit to operate in that capacity, because my hot food has to be hot all the time and my cold food has to be cold all the time. And so we are struggling a little bit with that. I offered maybe a salad bar or something, and she said, absolutely not. It'll just be in the way. It'll just be too much. I said, well, we could fill it with food though, you know what I mean? Like more food on the cold side. Too much. That's just too much. I mean, I'm not sure that would be good. Then what would I put the salad bar at? I said, I don't know, but you know, I'm just trying to offer.
Who was saying, is that Juliana saying that?
Yeah,
Is that-
Julia.
Okay, okay.
So, but I told her, I said, you know, I just want to offer solutions of how we can work together. She said, well, I'll tell you my opinion. I said, that's what I'm here for, you know? She said, what we're doing now is 100 times better than what we did before you guys came.
She said, so I don't have a problem with you. And I said, okay. I said, does somebody have a problem with me? Because if so, I'll talk to anybody. I'm good at it. And she said, it's just a parent thing. And I said, tell me a little bit more about the parent thing. Well, parents are gonna complain. And she said, right now they're complaining because kids are going home and telling their parents they're hungry. She said, that's what got all this started. I said, oh, okay. And I said, how do you feel about that? Well, they're not going home hungry. And I said, well, they can't go home hungry if we're really doing this whole program that we're supposed to be doing. It'd be impossible really for, the small children that we're talking about. And so she, she's doing her job over there and she's doing the best she could possibly do with what she has, and bless her heart, you know what I mean? But I don't know what else to do other than to kind of put a program into place where the right kids are getting the right meals. And she could probably use, a little bit of support, possibly from Brenda. Brenda's kind of engaged her now so that they communicate with each other more. She doesn't have to feel like she's on her own anymore, doing her own thing. So we're gonna kind of embrace her and kind of bring her into the family a little bit more and let her know that we're here to help her, as much as we possibly can. So that is what we got going on. Very good.
And I don't know this person, how long has she been in this position? Do we know?
Julianne, I don't know.
Third year.
She was there last year when I started in the middle of February, she was there. And, yeah, I didn't really get to know her, but I've spent some time with her lately and she's very energetic.
She, I think she was there prior to our partnership, because she, I don't think, had a very good relationship with the prior company. I think that, and I think that's why she's a little bit standoffish. Like I'm gonna come in and, chew on her a little bit, which I would not do. I would just.
She might feel a little isolated. in her
Yes,
position.
isolated, but I think they may not have had a very cordial relationship. And I think she was afraid that we were gonna come in and try to do that same thing, and I'm like, no. I said, I need you to tell me what's going on. So we talked about the book, about writing comments in the book, like if you had a challenge today, or let's say you don't want those two entrees anymore side by side, just say, no more, I don't wanna see these together anymore, just write it in there. I said, we can change anything, it doesn't matter to us, we're very manageable that way when it comes to change, we're not gonna push back or whatever, we just change it.
And I think we need to make sure, and I have been talking to Lori about 4 times in the last 5 days.
Yep.
We need to make sure we're looping the administration in over there too, because if they need another warmer, I don't think Julianne should be able to say no. If that helps kids to get hot food, or if they need something else to, like a chiller or something to keep things cool.
Yep.
That shouldn't be one employee saying, oh, no, we just can't make that work.
I totally agree.
We need the administration to say.
I completely agree with that. I did not want to take this opportunity to kind of go above her, and she didn't offer me to go above her either.
But she's your employee, right?
She is the school's employee.
Oh, she works for
They all
IC.
work for
Thank
the
you.
IC.
Okay, well, everybody else is volunteers from what I
That is
understand.
correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she actually works for the school district.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said, I wasn't going to, if she didn't offer to take me up to meet her boss, I wasn't going to march up there like,
Julian and I did talk about meeting with
Lori, and I told Lori you were
Yeah,
coming that
like
day.
Next week, or, I asked her to
Stop by.
check in with her and see when she would have some time to meet. I mean, we could all three sit down and
I'd love to join too, just to make sure.
hammer stuff out if we needed,
we want it right, and we want to be fair. When it comes to feeding kids, that's all we do for a living, so.
We want the kids to be happy.
We do.
We were talking about the, Joe, you mentioned it about. A student came in late, a preschool student came in late this afternoon. And we pretty much, I think, had our stuff kind of cleaned up over there, cause. Kitchens, that kitchen closes at about 1:30 in the afternoon. So what can we do? I talked with Mary, the manager over there, and we came up with a plan. You know what? If somebody lets us know that they're not gonna be there, or they're gonna be late, or even if we don't have the communication, we've already prepped, we've already made that food for them. So just make their trays up. If we need to microwave them, if they're 20 minutes late, then that's what we can do. Or if they want a cold sandwich, we'll make them a cold sandwich. It just depends on what's on the menu. We can brown bag it or whatever it takes, but we're gonna We gotta keep the kids.
And we have two Joes, that was Washington. by
Oh,
the
I'm
way.
sorry.
That's okay, we have two
Yeah,
Joes.
that's right.
He alluded to it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's what I mean.
Over at the IC thing, you mentioned sometimes there may be a drop tray or something like that. Do you send over extras for accidents?
The policy had been that they send over one extra of each entree, which would be 3 extra. We're gonna double that, make it 6 extra. So that way we are covering anything that may happen. We typically, when I was talking to the lead over at Washington, our employee, she said, Mike, I always send over extra because I don't ever want to have a situation where like they run out of something, you know what I mean? Like a kid changes their mind. It's not the end of the world. We want children to make that choice themselves, really. We really don't want to tie them to something. But in the scenario where we're sending over the exact amount of food you're asking for, we have to have something that ties that together, or we blew through the hamburgers the first lunch and everyone else in the school gets mac and cheese.
The color thing, teaching anybody, starting at the youngest ages, to, if you make a decision, you stick with it. You don't get to flip flop because somebody else depends on what you've done.
That's right.
So that's fine. The color thing is a great system. That ought to be done. Accidents do happen, things get dropped. And you wouldn't want that to be a reason
No,
that there's not enough to eat, I guess.
that's it.
Last week, I actually got to see the color code in action because I have a first grader and a preschooler grandson, and I was off, so I went ahead, sat with lunch. And it did go really well. The kids had the cards, they knew what they wanted, they put the cards in the bin and away they went. They weren't sitting there deciding what they wanted.
The one thing great about a town like Charles City is that everyone knows everybody, right? So as I'm standing there talking to one of my leads, she goes, well, let's just call another from some kids that go over to the IC. And I said, well, let's just do it. And she goes, I have a friend and she has 3 kids that go there. So she ring-a-dings it and says, tell me about the food service over there. And she was very positive, very encouraging, said they were happy with it. They love the fact that they have choices now. They're not tied to 1 entree anymore or 2 entrees. They get different things. Last year, the fresh vegetables did not go over as well as we would like them to, but they typically don't. When kids, the first interaction is usually not very positive when it comes to carrots and cauliflower and broccoli and different fresh vegetables. This year, they're actually eating them, and we've actually added to the amount that we're sending. So they're learning to eat fresh vegetables, which is what we try to push in our business, is teaching that very early, because I've been in school systems that took it all the way through the system, and watched them as they started, and when they were in high school, how the salad bar was the first thing they went to instead of the last. So I've seen that transition through kids, how they get attached to these things and they keep eating them as they keep going. So I'm excited about that part too.
So do they put everything on their tray? Like if they said, all I want is the entree, that's not a choice, like they would still put the vegetables and fruit on.
Yeah, there are rules. One of the state rules is that every tray must have a fruit or a vegetable. So they could get an entree, which would have, let's say, bread. So you've hit your grain, you've hit your protein. Now you're looking at a fruit or vegetable. So you have to have those 3 components on there, those 3 categories on each tray. But the truth is, like I said, if they wanted to have every single thing on the line, that's absolutely their choice to do that. I
They
mean,
could choose that, but they only need 1 fruit, 1 vegetable and have a tray.
as a minimum.
As a minimum, yeah. So it's called offer first to serve, and we offer more than the minimum. And they need to choose what they want to put on the tray.
Cause their color code is just for the entrees.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yes, yeah.
Then
And
everything
they
else
go
will be
lunch,
added.
The meal counts in the morning, and like the teachers would hand out the color code, and then.
That'd be like the hamburger or the taco.
Right,
Exactly.
But the extras are just like the supplement.
Yeah,
They-
all the sides or whatever they want.
Yeah, that they just pick and kind of.
Yeah, if they want 2 fruits, they can have 2 fruits. If they want 3 veggies, they can have 3 veggies.
We run this program in all of your schools here in the district. The high school has 2 salad bars, and we've made it clear, you take as much of that as you want. There is no limit. If you want 5 apples, you take 5 apples. That's it. You take what you want. And some of those kids, they do that. That's
Really
okay.
proud of- And it is nice, I was in Fort Dodge for 15 years, and it was really nice to see the kids. I was there when they started the Michelle Obama thing, but it's really fun to see those elementary kids come through the high school line. and they're eating their fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
It's,
Meaning that they grew that taste for
yeah,
that thing.
yeah, because, you know, they started in kindergarten, first grade, you know, we started with, fruit and vegetable bars and.
Would you like to guess what the number one vegetable is that elementary kids eat?
Just like as a cold vegetable.
A cold vegetable, yeah.
Just probably thinking of like a carrot.
Cucumbers.
They love
Cucumbers.
cucumbers.
I did not know
Oh
what it
my
is about
gosh.
cucumbers, but it blew me away because that's not a vegetable that I would tie elementary kids to. I would go with the carrots. I would go with something they're used to seeing. No way.
No
Go
way.
cucumbers.
Is it like a sliced cucumber?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You give them 5, they want 5 more. You know, give me 5 more of those. I don't know if they
Give
think
them
they're
ranch.
pickles. I'm not really sure what they think, but I don't care. We just keep putting them on their
Well,
trays.
hydration.
No
source.
ranch with it?
Oh, you put some ranch on that thing and they're on it, I'll tell you, but.
You know, like
Yeah.
today we had some, I don't know, they did some seasoning on the cucumbers today. Yeah, whatever it was called. The real name,
Well, thank you for taking the time to meet
Well,
with
thank
all
you.
of our building levels and connect the dots, it sounds like.
I'd like to really applaud all three of you standing there.
True.
On the quick
Yeah.
response, because this came to both of us Sunday. And
Mhm.
you're standing before us today
Yep.
and having good results, so thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.
I can tell you that with IC, I'm fortunate enough to have kids there and here. It has been an issue with the PTO. That's one of the main topics they talk about is the lunches.
Yeah.
But they've never been able to get past the common ground with discussing with administration and food service over there and the parents that are sitting in that organization.
That's it.
I invite any parent, any PTO, any board person to come through the line, you know, and see what those kids are really getting, because I don't think they have a really good concept that they can choose so many things, that they're offered so many things.
Yeah, we're not hiding
No.
behind anything. Anyone, anytime who wants to come up to the
You bet.
school, and eat in our cafeterias.
We'll challenge them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to learn, I have a 3-year-old that's like, I'm hungry, it's like, there's like a plethora of food.
Oh,
And maybe if Lori invites them, that would go a long ways too.
Absolutely.
Well, if Lori, the principal, invites them.
Oh, yeah, well,
That might go a long way.
we'll get together and we'll figure out, you know, kind of get her idea going. And get it set up and rock and roll it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, Jerry, we got 45 slides of construction pictures.
Oh, are you Jerry?
Sorry about the time. Yeah, when we added more items, I knew it was gonna be a little longer, but.
Okay.
Yeah, here it is.
So then, right, no, right, back out of that. Just your.
I'll email you. I have a funny example. I can't think of it.
You got it.
Yeah, none of that.
Like fail.
None of that.
So that would feel like how we feel for like.
Right.
this lunch.
I think it would call me now.
You got my slides.
We ready?
Brian, awesome. All right, well, here's our update. I'm gonna go over summer projects completed. I'll give a modus update on how far we are on that, and then, I'll give a little agenda, what we got for our next facility meeting, which is this Friday, which will make it an hour because I drive up Cambridge Thursday and Mason City Friday. So I'm working a lot of hours, so bear with me. First thing we did, well, not first thing, these are all things we did over the summer. So I just went around, took pictures, put a little caption with it. We added the sharing library stands outside of Lincoln and Washington, and I've heard they're being used a lot. So they're really cool. They're right by the two main entrances there. So the guys added that. What's that?
Did students make those or did you buy them?
No, the ag department made. So
They're cute.
ag, wood shop,
I-
those departments. Cement, well, and I reworded this on mine and I'm sorry, I was a little off. We added cement, this is the special ed room that's right over here. It had a big drop off. So it's emergency exit, big drop off. Students in wheelchairs couldn't get out, so we added cement there. In our budgeting in the future, we'll make that cement go farther out to meet up another sidewalk, but we got it so they can get out. The parents extremely happy. They were complaining to Levi a little bit. We got that done last minute, got that added, so. I was just talking to them a little bit. The stackable oven showed up for middle school. What they're gonna use those for, they're gonna put it in the middle one, not the one that's in the commons, but in the middle one, right in the corner. So that if they need to warm up some food while they're there and so forth. We got all the electrical ordered now. We're gonna plan on doing that over Christmas break, so we're not interfering anywhere. I didn't have a picture of the other ones, but also 2 ovens showed up for the high school the other day. So we're gonna put those in, and one of the ovens that's in the high school, we're gonna move over to Lincoln. Okay, next. We kept the district mowed, weed eated, trimmed trees, fertilized, sprayed the entire district with having, we're one staff short pretty much most of the summer. I still haven't got anybody hired. I think I've got someone, a serious candidate. I'm hoping to hear tomorrow, which would be awesome because it's another bus driver. We took down 17 dead trees around the district this summer. The last 2 years now, we've taken down about 48 dead trees and we've still got more to go. Tuck pointing project, that was budgeted at $50,000. We got the entire building done, $37,000 under budget. Installed the vape sensors at the high school, middle school, innovative campus. They're all installed. Central lock, it can monitor those right now. They went off a few times. Our training for staff, I sent the email for training. It comes right from the vape sensor company. And Central Lock's going to sit on that training too, because ours is the first ones they installed. So I sent it to all the principals a couple days ago. They have to have their information in by tomorrow afternoon at 4, so then we can set up the live training. So that will be done pretty quick here. We installed a new food warmer at the high school kitchen. We also cleaned up the kitchen a lot that we talked about last year. Got that old wood table out of there, got a bunch of old stuff out of their storage room out of there, redid a little bit in their storage room over the summer. This is right on the end where that wood table used to be. So we installed that. We added our second wheelchair lift. So now we have a wheelchair lift going down and up at Lincoln School. We're having a lot of little issues with it, but we're getting them and they're working. This was a fire marshal thing. Down in the bottom of a lot of this end of the high school had louvers on the bottom of the doors. You can't have those. So we had to cover those with metal plates. So if you walk around the north end of the high school, that was a fire marshal nick that we got. So we had to put plates on 17 doors. We did that this summer. Painted all the parking lot lines, which we have a lot of parking lot lines, and then I did Rockford's too. So this was really cool. This looks awesome over at Washington. They had these little piddly things that come out and they set them out for each of the pots, pick up and drop off lines. They kept blowing over all the time. So we made them some nice signs and put them in and they look great in the front of the school. We took out some old equipment at Washington, rearranged equipment to give them more room and to prepare for the Ansell systems that we need to do this next budget year. There was this old, I don't know if anyone's ever been in there, this old oven. It looked like almost like an old pizza oven. Huge. It took 4 of us to get that out with a lift. So crazy. The Lincoln's metal roofs got all reseal coated this summer. Our secure entrances are 100% done. I'm waiting for final bid, final invoices on a couple of them. We got an email Brian and I did because we asked him where we were at, and I said probably 98% because I haven't got the last invoices. So as soon as we get that done, we'll do that. To add to that, I think I got a picture coming up, so I won't say it yet. There were some bad spots here in the front of Washington, and this is it's part of the foundation, so it's like 10 foot deep of cement. We did some good patching that's going to last for quite a while until we figure out what we're going to do at the front of that if anything else happens to it at Washington. We added door readers to all the offices now. We had a couple of close calls at the high school with parents going in pretty angry, getting the assistant principal cornered in their office. Now the offices are locked down. They get buzzed in if they need to go in there. I think that was almost better than the secure entrances that we put in because just to secure our staff even better. We fixed the EPIS at Lincoln. While he was doing that, Brandon and I hopped up on a lift. We had a bunch of spots. It almost looked like maybe things were thrown at it or something, but big dents out of it. So then this next summer, we're going to repaint that EPIS with our staff. We wax every floor in every building, and the floors, if you walk around now, I think our floors look awesome. They are shiny and look great. We redid the gym floors. Before I started, we hired a company to do it. It cost about 10 grand each gym. And probably the big gym would cost more like 12 to 14 now. We do that ourselves. And I'm really proud of the gym floors. This was from our ADA inspection that we had this last year. We had 127 round doorknobs at the high school. We already had it budgeted. They were sitting in a pallet, all in a box. We still wrote us up for it because they weren't on. So they're installed now. So
and pictures sent to the state.
Yep, and pictures sent to the state. This was a thing that you guys approved a while ago, and it sort of got messed up on the end of Cardinal Construction. He come over and he had to eat a little crow with me. They got the cement approach to it. There was a mix up on the garage door. That's why I didn't get in this summer. So you see they got their float there ready to go for the homecoming parade when I took this picture, but the door is gonna go in when it comes. They're gonna build an interior wall at night when no students are here, insulating everything so they can tear that out while school's going on. So we're still gonna get that in this fall. We installed air conditioners in the chorus room, band room, orchestra room, and we had to run all the power for all that ourselves. Our internal staff did that. We also added, next one. We also added air conditioner at the Lincoln Art Room since that got moved upstairs. So that upstairs is extremely hot. The ADA playground was installed. We've had a lot of people compliment on that. So that was a good thing. And no cost to us. This is huge too. We didn't get rode up on it, the ADA inspection, but part of the secure entrances, Lincoln, Washington, and the high school did not have push button entries. We have push button entries at every school now for our main entries. Also part of that grant that we got, we added the ADA swings at middle school in Lincoln. And I see that one down at the middle school getting used all the time. Them are the 3 new air handlers that were installed this summer up at the high school. One left. We update the science rooms to DX. We can eliminate that round pipe under the 500 circle. I'm excited about that. We clean carpets every summer, so they did a nice job of cleaning all the carpets. I'm just trying to get everything that's in. This was huge. Staff. We added more parking. We've got safe out back now. When they go to these dumpsters, we got a dumpster here, and a dumpster right over here. This is recycling, that's cardboard. Over here is the garbage, and now it's a safe. They go out there, there's not potholes, there's not broken cement. The cement trunk's not sinking down in, so that was huge. And like I said, we got rode up 3 years in a row from EMC for the way that was back there, so that was huge. And that come in about, what's that?
Is there a sewer under that you?
Yeah, and we redid that sewer. They did, Nick Gage was here and put all new sewer and added another clean out for us. Go back one slide, can you, Brody? So over here, so this is a door that goes into a special ed room. We added another clean out right there. So now we have a clean out here, a clean out here, and a clean out up by the custodial room. They added an intake for water, because part of the reason that cement probably broke up in the past, there was no clean out, so that water could never leave that area. It sat there a lot, got in there, froze, broke. We've got an intake way up there by that freezer, and we got an intake right back here behind these cars that tie into this intake here. So that's why that's sort of black there. They had to dig down and tie into the intake behind the baseball field. So just a good project. We did 103 work orders in Charles City this summer and 38 work orders in Red Rock for Mob Rock. So that's it for summer. That wasn't it, but that's most of the things I can think of. I've got an unbelievable staff, guys. They worked hard, so I couldn't be more proud of what I got. So Modus. We had a kickoff meeting with Modus. They had 5 people come up and meet with Brandon and myself. And at the kickoff meeting, then we went over and we toured the high school. They took a lot of information. I had to send them all the floor plans and electrical, mechanical plans to them. I got those to them because I have them all electronic, so it's easy to send them to them. And then they also wanted our electrical usage for 1 year, so they got that for me, and I forwarded that on. And here's their response on where they're at right now. So they're going to be in touch after their engineer reviews the electrical usage. You can read this. I think you guys got this, didn't you? Or if not, I can sort of go through it real quick. Just says, thank you for electrical usage information. I passed this along with our electrical engineer. We'll be in touch after he reviews electric use for another site visit and our next steps. We've been compiling the information from our site visit or PDFs to have a good outline for our report. The electrical information gets us one step closer to verifying the feasible HVAC systems. Existing HVAC equipment in the circle buildings are at end of life. Kitchen hood, dishwasher, exhaust fans at end of life. Kitchen hood is not code compliant. We're fixing that. Multiple HVAC systems are being reviewed for feasibility in existing circle buildings based on room size and structures. HVAC options, and they go on to tell a little bit about some things that they're going to start looking at doing for us. So when we get, we'll go into the next one, Brian, so I sort of jump ahead, I'm sorry. I'm passionate about what I like to talk about, so I could just get on a roll. The other thing we're gonna do is we got the facility committee meeting coming up in our next, this Friday. Agenda for the meeting, just so everyone knows, we're gonna review the summer projects, because this was already on the list before you guys wanted me to come here, so we're just gonna talk if there's any questions on more specific. I sent out an email about halfway through the summer to admin I got a really nice email back from April, so I just want to share that. Modus update, we're gonna go over that again and talk a little bit more, because I can give you guys a little more detail, then you can pass it along to the board. Transportation update. We're struggling. We don't have staff. I'm driving all the time. So I just want to talk a little bit about some ideas or stuff like that with you guys.
Is the surrounding school districts having the same kind of problem?
All the same. I sat by a guy from Decorah and a lady from New Hampton or Nashua at the seventh, eighth cross country night. One guy says, I'm full-time somewhere else. They just called me up and asked me to start driving activities. So you gotta pick up some activities for them. So there's some things that maybe we could do like that too. Maybe we can contact people, hey, do you want to drive at night there for us or something? Because with not getting overtime, which we want to really like overtime because that kills my budget. I've got the drivers like Tim LaBarge, just for example, Tim drives 20 hours a week for a route. So he can only drive 20 hours a week for activities. And so he's driving 3 nights this week and we've got activities 4 nights this week and like 3 or 4 activities a night, those 4 nights. So it's tough. We'll talk
And
more
maybe
about
we
that.
think about some protocols where we would do overtime, like if you've driven 3 times in 5 days, then maybe it's time to do occasional overtime.
Something, at some point, maybe, because I drove last Friday, the Friday before to South Tama. I usually start work about 5:30, 5:45, just so I make sure buses are ready, make sure no vandalism around the district. I got home from South Tama at 12:45. Makes a pretty long day. So go back 1 second, make sure I got everything, and then we'll start preparing I've got a possible wrestling room idea for middle school. I want to bounce that off you guys. I think it's great and it's not going to hardly cost us anything, but we'll bounce that off and come back with that. And then start preparing for next year's projects, what are on there. And then we want to get items from Modus and things like that. So I want to start talking about next year's budget so we can get that going. So next, is that it?
That's it.
Questions?
6 o'clock.
Yep.
6 o'clock. I told you I was gonna talk 110 minutes. I could talk for hours. So,
Perfect, yeah.
all right.
I appreciate the thought of allowing overtime, and it's not a budget concern, it's a safety concern for me. I don't want you having to drive that late at night with anybody's kids. That's not fair to you, that's not fair to them kids.
Right.
I'd rather, like you said, find activity drivers if we can do it.
Right.
I know they're hard to find, but
Yeah, and I've got a couple, 3 ideas and we'll talk about it on Friday.
Right.
We'll go from there. So, you know.
just so we don't have a.
I'm gonna do anything I can for this district though, because this is my town.
Yes.
So I want to do what we need to do. So,
Great.
all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rick.
Appreciate everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And we'll put the PowerPoint in the minutes.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
So,
It's attached to the agenda also,
oh,
or
thank
the
you.
PowerPoint.
His.
My compilation of everybody's
Oh,
slideshow.
so Jerry's PowerPoint is attached to the agenda.
Yeah, and then I added in the list too. So it's in both.
We're gonna make it a little fancy with my one.
No, it's just plenty fancy.
Up on the train to.
That's exactly.